the Grownlearn podcast, and I'm Zorina, your host. Today, we're going to be helping all women that find themselves on the crossroads, that have just completed a relationship and are looking for their way out of a financial hurdle. Most people or women that I've spoken to who've ended their relationships have a significant concern about money, and this is what our guest is going to be speaking today. I'm welcoming Patti Handy. Hello, Patti.
Hello, Zarina. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Patti, you're coming out of a long career in finance, and you're a certified. Can you tell me what your career was? You were in mortgage and finance coach. Yeah.
Yes. So I was I was a post having my child. I was a mortgage advisor for many years, and then I transitioned into financial advisor. I was a financial advisor because I wanted to have a deeper relationship with my clients. The mortgage world was very transactional, and once you do a loan, you move on. And with being a financial advisor, I was very involved with my client's life from start to finish. So I really enjoyed that. But the common theme that I heard throughout my career in the mortgage and financial world, specifically from women, was a story of fear, a story of overwhelm, frustration, many tears, in conversations. And I decided to pivot just actually a couple months ago. I left my firm as a financial advisor and transitioned into financial coaching, which incorporates life coaching along with financial education and financial coaching. And I work with women. I primarily work with women who are divorced, widowed, or single. But women who are married come to me as well, and we share, things that they should be doing in the relationship now. But that's, high level. I'm a certified life coach and certified executive coach, and I've written 4 books as well.
Wow, that's a mouthful of things you have done. Patti, what directed you towards this segment or this group of people? Why do you want to specifically coach women who are going through a divorce?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the seed was planted when I went through my divorce. When I went through my divorce, my son was 18 months old, and we had been trying for 5 years. My ex-husband and I were trying for 5 years, and we finally had him through in vitro fertilization. So the IVF was successful the first time, thank goodness. And I was enjoying being at home with him, and that was my focus. I left my corporate financial world behind and was at home raising him, and then went through the divorce when he was 18 months. So I was in a place where, although I knew how to manage money, the overwhelm of divorce, the fears, the just being distraught. I remember one pivotal moment where I was, probably a couple of weeks after the divorce sort of, was announced, if you will. I was laying in a fetal position, just sobbing, feeling overwhelmed, feeling just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I don't have a job. I got to raise my son. I mean, all these things, the loss of a marriage. And I had this very strange download. I call it a little God wink, where I had this thought that you're going to be okay because you know how to manage your money. And I wasn't even thinking about money. I wasn't thinking about my financial situation per se. I was just sobbing from grief. And it was a strange, again, download. It was really very, very unusual. So I months later, when I came out from under the fog, if you will, I remember saying to myself, I'm going to somehow turn this experience of a divorce and turn this around and help women who are going through this. And I know money is a piece that is painful for many, and I'm going to somehow use that. So it's always been, gnawing at me literally for over 2 decades at this point. And I was just too busy raising my son and making a living and doing my job that I never really got to act on it. And so that's sort of the seed that was planted, and then the culmination of all the conversations I had with women over the years. I decided to just take that leap and do it.
So when you meet a client in such a situation, what is the first thing you ask them to do? What is the first advice that you give them?
Well, it's going to depend on their situation. I do a lot of asking of questions about their situation and where they're at. As a coach, I'm doing a lot more, asking and listening than I am talking. And then when I understand completely their pain points, where they're at in life, where they want to go, where they are today, we create a roadmap, as far as the plan of action. I have created a course. It's called Minding Her Money, and it's an online digital course that incorporates 9 different areas of a person's life, and it's very comprehensive. And so we start there. I have them start with watching those videos and watching the course, and then we have some group coaching. But it's really about having them identify where they're at today and where they want to be by when. That's the first and foremost. And I use the analogy, if I were to blindfold you and I were to drop you in the middle of your country, and you didn't have your phone, you didn't have a GPS, you didn't have anything, and we took the blindfold off, and I said, okay, make your way home, what would be the first question you would ask yourself? And the first question would be, well, where am I? Right? It's like you have to know where you are to be able to know how to get home. So it's the same as finances, whether it's your financial world, if it's your relationship or your whatever it is in your life. So you have to know where you are today, and then determine the plan, the path, the journey to get to where you want to go.
And when you say you have to know where you are today, is this in terms of these 9 areas where your course is based on, or are you talking only about finances or about emotional state? What is the location?
Yeah, great question. So it's really everything. Yes, for sure, on the financial side, we want to determine where you are today. So what are your assets? What are your liabilities? What are your debts? What's your income? What's coming in? What's going out? How much is your living expenses every month? What do you have a home? What kind of equity is in your home? So you determine your net worth. So it's really about getting on paper what you have right now, where you are today. And if you're post-divorce, it's going to be, typically half of what you had prior to divorce, right? So that's going to be a different starting ground. But we also talk about your money mindset and your relationship with money and your money story, and understanding where you are today in that money mindset and money story is important to reprogram what you don't, what limiting beliefs don't serve you. And kind of getting to the root of that. We talk about your credit and how to get your credit score improved and what that looks like, and how to buy a house or refinance on your own. So you've got to know where you're at today with, what does that look like? Do I need to refinance to pay my ex-husband off? What does that story look like? Getting organized, as simple as that sounds. A lot of us are just, paperwork everywhere. We don't have files. We don't have one place where we have everything, all the documentation, all of our insurance documents, our living trust, our debt, so that if we were to pass away, our beneficiaries or our children wouldn't be, trying to hunt down all of our stuff. So getting everything organized is so important. So that's just a sprinkling of what is in the program, but it encompasses all of that, the emotional side, the mental part, the financial piece, spiritual side.
So apart from the fact that your typical client is going through a divorce, what are other typical characteristics? Like, who normally is looking for you? Do these women have jobs, or what is their behavioral description?
They're all over the place. There are some that, homemakers who were, staying at home moms, and they raise their kids, and they're in this, what they call gray divorce. So they're in their 50s or 60s, and suddenly the divorce happens and they find themselves somewhat lost. There's the widows who have lost their spouses, oftentimes unexpectedly. I had one client that I worked with many years ago who, when I was in the mortgage business, who husband has passed away very unexpectedly. And he took care of all the investing in the money and paid the bills. And she didn't even know where the checkbook was. I mean, it was just like, he just took care of everything. And not for any other reason, that it was just, that was his comfort level. And she was like, okay, well, you take care of it. That's great. But when he passed away, she didn't know where anything was, and it was an absolute mess. And luckily for her, they uncovered a unexpected investment account with about $600,000 in it, which was a beautiful surprise for her. but it also could have worked on the, the flip side. It could have worked against her if they had, come to find out that they had a bunch of debt that, she wasn't aware of. So, the ladies who I speak to who are married, I strongly encourage them to be equally involved in the financial story of their life. So yes, the husband may physically pay the bills and may physically do the investing, but she should know where every asset is, how much they have, how it's allocated, what debt they have. She should have a very solid understanding of their entire financial picture.
When you talk about mindset, because you mentioned this is one of the first things that your program addresses, what are some of the worries, inhibitions, fears of the women that contact you?
So we all have a money story, and most of the women that I speak to, and men for that matter, I mean, just conversations in general, we see more scarcity mindset than we see abundance mindset. So I'll give a little backstory to that. So from birth to age 8, we are a sponge. We take in everything as fact. So if our parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, coaches, teachers, whoever we're hearing are saying things to us, we just take that in as fact. We don't have a filter and say, Mom, that doesn't make sense. If you heard growing up, money doesn't grow on trees, or no, we can't afford that, or what do you think, we're rich, or rich people are greedy, our mindset then is of lack and that money is bad. And if that's what we heard growing up, that's what we're going to be thinking in our subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind really dictates 95% of our reality externally. So although consciously we have a very small percentage that's actually physically doing things, the subconscious is the big piece that's functioning on the underneath of us, if you will. And I use the analogy of an iceberg. When you see an iceberg above the ocean waters, you see just a small portion. If you see the underneath side of the iceberg under the water, that is the bigger piece. That's the subconscious mind, and the piece of the ice that's above the water is the conscious mind. That's kind of the analogy that I use. So our subconscious is very pre-programmed, and it's up to us to identify those limiting beliefs, which create thoughts in our life, and then those thoughts create our actions, which create the results that we have. So that's across the board. That's women, men. That's really everything. So if there's one thing to know, is that if you have young kids, be mindful of what you say and how you're speaking to them. I'm a boomer, so my parents were born in the Great Depression. So I heard a lot of fear. I heard a lot of scarcity. I heard a lot, that's just what they learned. And there's no blame, there's no pointing fingers. It's just, this is what I heard. And my parents just did the best they could with what they heard growing up. Right. And it's, and so forth and so on. So generationally, we have heard, various stories. But, we can stop that now. And the beautiful thing about the brain is that it is neuroplastic. So we can change those thoughts. It takes time. It takes work. But we aren't, if we have this upbringing, we aren't stuck with that for life, which is very hopeful.
Yes, I myself am coaching on my other platform, a system based on the Silva method, but not entirely. So I'm well aware of the influence of the subconscious mind on our entire reality. So I'm all with you here. But let's talk now about the practical part of money. When a client comes to you and, you discover what their net worth is, what the money situation is, what is it that you advise them to do with their money? Or what are some directions in which you point them?
So if their situation is, again, it's very personal. There is no a one size fits all. But if their situation is one where they don't have money set aside for, the unexpected, right? The emergency fund, we make sure that gets funded. If they've got credit card debt, we make a plan of getting out of credit card debt. So we look at what their debts look like. We look at the interest rates on those cards. We make a plan into what's the best way to tackle that and get that paid off. Then we look at, what's coming in and what's going out. Can we look at the budget and determine where are there some holes that we can potentially pay less out, and just be mindful of what those spending habits are. We talk about emotional spending, or retail therapy, I call it, where there's spending happening because you're just having a bad day. I mean, we're all human beings. We all do it. I still do it. It just happens, right? But we've got to be mindful of that at the expense of our long-term just well-being, our long-term financial well-being. So we look at the spending habits and ways to, again, fill those gaps. Opportunities for possible increased income, whether it's a side hustle like they've always wanted to do. They've always had this idea in their heart that they wanted to do something. We explore that. We look at their credit, and if it's in good shape, then we leave it alone. If it's not in good shape, we work with improving that credit, and I give them tips and tools to get that credit score improved. There's a lot of myths online, a lot of information online that is it's hard to determine what's right and what's wrong. But I had worked in that field for so many years, and I've seen so many credit scores come up. So have a very good handle on what it takes to get that score up. And then the investing side. So I don't manage assets anymore. When I worked at my firm as an advisor, we had assets that we managed. I don't manage money anymore. They still need to manage it themselves. But I teach them how to, first of all, the basic fundamentals. What's a mutual fund? What's an ETF? What is that? What are the differences? How do you look at, if you go to Fidelity or Vanguard or Schwab or wherever, how do you see what the expense ratio is on those funds, and how expensive those are, and how they're invested, and what does that look like in terms of diversification, and how and I don't tell them, oh, your portfolio should be invested in 10% this, 10% that, 20, I don't give that advice. That's crossing the line into financial advice, but I educate them so that they can make those own decisions. And then if the situation is such that I feel a financial planner might be a good idea, I say, you might want to look at a financial advisor, and here's why, and here's the questions to ask them. And if they say this or that, make sure you ask and get clarification. So I give them the confidence that they need to go into those meetings and get a good understanding of what they're asking. And then I will refer them, depending upon where they are, I'll refer them to advisors if I can, so that they can have that next level of assistance. And I actually working with a lot of financial advisors right now, because what I do, they don't do, and vice versa. So it's a great complement. In fact, I've seen that a lot of financial advisors are bringing in life coaches into their firm to work with clients, because they don't do the coaching piece, the life coaching piece. And a lot of what I've just shared, they don't do in a typical financial advisory role.
So what is it that inspires you for this kind of work?
I'm a teacher at heart. Again, back to my story, I wanted to take that experience of my divorce and somehow turn that around and serve and be able to make a big impact. And it's very fulfilling work for me. The wonderful thing that gives me chills is that if I can teach 1,000 women this information, and then they can turn around and teach their kids or their loved ones or their friends or whoever, and that the ripple effect out into the world is going to be just massive over time, right? So today we have this place where financial education isn't taught in schools. It's starting to, which is a beautiful thing, but typically it hasn't been taught in schools. We don't learn it at home. So there's a lot of confusion and fear and just unknown, and people, it's paralysis by analysis. They don't do anything, right? Because they're fearful of it, they just don't do anything. So if I can create this confidence and this empowerment, and again, the ripple out to the world, that to me is a untouchable legacy that I would love to leave.
Patti, how can people reach you, work with you? What are the conditions for working with you?
Sure. So my main website is just my name. It's pattihandy.com. So it's PattiHandy.com. And there's we can learn a little bit more about me there. And then there's a link. It's Minding Her Money. So Minding Her Money is my program. Click on that, and then you can get a free download of a couple goodies, and then book a call with me where we spend 30 minutes talking about what's going on in their world. And it's a discovery call. And then I share my program. And if I feel like it's a good fit, we talk about it. And if it's not, that's not. And then, that's kind of the best way to get them started is just to go to the Patti Handy website and then I click on the Minding Her Money link.
Awesome. Is there anything that I missed asking you that you would love to share that is important?
I would just wrap up with, if you're in a situation where you are struggling financially, you don't feel confident, give yourself some grace. I think it's important that we really give ourselves grace. Again, when I was going through my divorce, I had that financial knowledge and the comfort of understanding investing, and I still made mistakes. I still made bad decisions, and it was based off of fear, based off of emotional, being a mess. And I just, it's like, okay, great. I learned from this. You learn the lesson, and you move on. And I just gave myself grace, and I didn't let that take me down, right? So again, it's okay. Just be proactive, find somebody that you trust and that you like, and learn from them. There's so many wonderful opportunities. There's a lot of great books out there. There's a lot of good opportunity for that growth. But first and foremost, give yourself grace. And especially if you're going through a divorce, you've lost a spouse, and you're just dealing emotionally with things, just take care of you first, and focus on getting yourself, back on track emotionally, and then the financial piece will come together when you're in a better place.
Thank you, Patti, for this informative and uplifting conversation.
Thank you, Zarina.
Thank you. So, gals, head to pattihandy.com. Thank you for listening to Grow and Learn. We hope that you found our podcast informative, engaging, and inspiring. Our mission is to help you keep growing and learning, and we hope that our conversations and insights have provided you with practical advice and useful perspectives. If you're looking for personalized support and guidance to help you achieve your personal or professional growth objectives, I offer a range of services to help. As a trusted management partner and mentor, I work with businesses in the process of transformation, looking for new streams of business, as well as M&A. With an extensive professional network of experts and mentors, I can bring on board the right person or team based on the specific needs of the company I'm working with. To learn more about the services I offer and how I can help you achieve your goals, visit my website at grownlearn.org. You can also reach out to me via email or social media. I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this episode of Grow and Learn, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us, and it helps us to continue to create content that is relevant and valuable to our listeners. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to sharing more insights and perspectives with you in the future.